Unscripted.
You know, I always consider myself as a little bit of a misunderstood individual. I really think that for me personally, that's just how I just kind of view myself. Maybe a little bit misunderstood, hated certainly. Probably not a lot of love for me personally, but I don't really understand that, as I've always kind of kept that same kind of energy towards Xbox and PlayStation. When last generation, when PlayStation was faltering with lack of AAA exclusives, I was on them, and I was, kind of praising Xbox for having, some big AAA exclusives. When those kind of dried off and it seemed like Xbox stopped, I gave them chance after chance, and they continued to fail. 541 days later, we still don't have a AAA exclusive from them on the PlayStation side. Even in a pandemic, they're able to deliver some games. So it just goes to show you one from the other and how different they are. For me personally, I felt like, I haven't changed. Microsoft changed, and a lot of people that consider me like a quote-unquote flip-flopper or whatever just really never made sense to me. And especially the fact that I call out both companies pretty evenly, especially with something like this. And I've mentioned this multiple times, I find Jim Ryan to be kind of slimy and sort of a bad guy and kind of a liar, just like Phil Spencer, right? I consider him to be very slimy and a liar and corporate and things like that, but he tries to be your buddy, and I always find that to be kind of creepy as well. So, and I also mention this on Crossfire Podcast, when I was on with Mooch and the gang. It's just so weird to me how the difference between Xbox and PlayStation fans are. What I mean by that is hardcore PlayStation fans will say, man, Jim Ryan's a scumbag, he's a liar, he's lied to us, he's kind of misled us, blah, blah, blah. The hardcore Xbox fans refuse to do that for Phil Spencer, and you see that numerous times on social media and things like that, where even when it was supposed to be, they were going to raise Xbox Live 100% a couple weeks ago, and people were giving Phil Spencer the benefit of the doubt, saying, "Oh no, it wasn't Phil. Phil would never do that. It probably wasn't him. He probably didn't know anything about it. He's the head of Xbox. He's on the board. He doesn't know anything about 100% increase in Xbox Live. Come on. The amount of people that make excuses for this man is ridiculous. He's lied to people time and time again. There's numerous examples of this. He said that Xbox One X was going to support VR. Then when questioned about it, said, "Oh yes, it still does support VR." From various things to Scalebound got canceled, so it was better for gamers, to Lionhead being canceled, so that's better for gamers. Apparently Phantom Dust isn't canceled at all, despite that being canceled years ago. He's never actually confirmed that game was canceled. He said it was actually still being made. The list goes. He would make up Street Fighter 5 being a PlayStation exclusive to Xbox fans. He was in it to win it. He wanted Xbox owners to feel first class and get content first, and the list goes on and on, but people just refuse to believe that. But here's an instance where Sony gets caught lying, and it's I feel compelled to call them out. I want to get into this, though, because I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about it. What's up, everybody? Crapgamer here with Crapgamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I really do appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It helps out the channel tremendously, and it means a lot to me personally. It's free for you guys to do. It's the best way to support a little crappy, person like myself with a little crappy channel like mine. It really does mean a lot. If you guys could support the channel, that's all I really ask. I put some effort and stuff into putting videos out every day, and it just would mean a lot to me. So shout out to all the old subscribers, new subscribers, and everybody in between. Now, it's very interesting when I talk about Sony and the fact that they get caught lying. Sony seems to be very much over Japan, and what that means and things like that. So a few weeks ago, Sony seemed to be done with Japanese video game market, and I understand it's an ever-changing market, and the Japanese market is more into handheld gaming and stuff like that. A lot of fans made excuses for it. Sony made excuses for it, but obviously Sony is sidelining it and moving on. The decline in the Japanese market, which saw some growth last year and which remains Sony's second biggest market even now, because Japanese market doesn't seem like they're very much into like the home consoles anymore and things like that. And Jim Ryan kept saying, no, we're not doing that, we're not doing that. And now we got the news that Sony is going to be shuttering Japan Studio, the prestige in-house Sony development team that ranks as among its oldest and responsible for some highly iconic, beloved, and critically commercially successful games, almost entirely, including the third-party support and localization teams, with those being routed to Sony's international development studios instead. And I think we can actually lay any notions down that Sony isn't abandoning the Japanese market. So what does this really mean? In terms of local marketing and support for Japanese third parties, as well as Sony's own Japanese IP, is also being wound down, and those functions will instead be handled by Western studios and other Sony Japanese studios, such as Polyphony Digital and Team Asobi. They remain unaffected by the move. So basically, it's really a bad outcome, and the fact that Sony was actually kind of caught lying, saying that they aren't doing this. It was sort of in the way that, if you go back to Jim Ryan's interview, and he said that there was no backlash from from their gamers about putting their games on PC. I always felt like that was a bunch of BS as well, because I saw a ton of backlash. I don't know what percentage the backlash is, because it's on social media, it's on forums and things like that, and so we definitely saw backlash. So for them to say that no, there was no backlash, and no, there was no people that didn't care about that, didn't care about the games going on PC, there definitely was people that cared that the games weren't going on PC, or that they were going on PC. And I just feel like that's something that gamers in general really kind of have to take a step back and then go, okay, well, what's really going on here? Like Sony themselves are out here kind of saying one thing, but the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. And I feel like that's something that really should be stated as quite factually. So the wording of Sony's confirmation of what they're doing in terms of closing down Japan Studio, the roles of the external production of Japan Studios titles will be concentrated within the global function of PlayStation Studios, seems to suggest that Sony Japan may be, may also have acted as an interface or a liaison between PlayStation platform and Japanese third parties, and that function has also been gutted from them and has been reassigned to Japanese third parties, and this would be a hefty loss indeed. Now, again, to be very clear, the writing seems to have been on the wall for a very long time, and this is like stuff that is coming from a article as well, which I will link, and you guys can check it out. For those who have been observant to many of the smaller things, we've heard complaints from smaller Japanese developers about being forced to submit their games for certification to PlayStation's Western headquarters, adhering to their Western certification guidelines, even if they have no plans on international release. And they've also heard of PlayStation arbitrarily applying content restriction guidelines, such as for violent content in Naruto games on Japanese games, and they've heard reports regarding Sony's strategy from anonymous insider sources who have claimed that Sony allegedly plans on focusing on big hits as far as Japan goes, counting on the fact that mid and smaller tier Japanese games don't have any place else to go, which is a calculation that may have started to backfire on them given the success of the Switch and the recent underperforming PlayStation. Now, they've heard Sony's not supportive of smaller Japanese developers, even something as minor as Sony forcing the Western layout and functions of the X and O buttons in Japan, which are usually the reverse of what Japan has been used to, where O is accept and X is cancel, and keeping those games cultural symbolism of those two symbols and the long-held standards of the Japanese console market has kind of hinted at this. So again, these are all coming back on Sony as kind of lying, saying, hey, we really respect our gamers, we really respect the Japanese market. It's funny because when you see that that this is the type of thing that's happening, it's hard to really make excuses for him, and I would never want to do that. I really do hope that that at the end of the day that Sony can actually come out of this be it even better, because you don't want to start losing some of your functionality. Like, if you just start focusing on hits and like big games, I think you could be missing some of this other stuff. And I know that sounds funny coming from me, because people think I always bash indies or AA games. It's not the case. I feel like indies and AA's are fine. But I also feel like you desperately need a good mix of AAA in there with the AA and the indies and stuff like that. It doesn't work otherwise. And when you look at Microsoft and you haven't had a AAA in 541 days, I think that's the biggest difference that there is. And hopefully we will see some movement from Sony and something to make up for this, because I know a lot of people are bummed out about it. But let's hope things change, and let's hope they change for the better. I'll be interested to hear your guys' take. You can hit the like button, share it out, subscribe if you haven't already done so, hit the bell so you're notified of everything as soon as it drops. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and watching another one of my videos. Have a great evening. Rack 'em up. Game on, my friends. Game on. Crapgamer out.
Unscripted.